Welcome to episode 19 of Whole Lot of Wolves. We're your hosts. I'm Joshua Buckley.
And I'm Paul LePage.
And joining us once again is regular guest and contributor Justin Buznado from Tennessee Wolves. How's it going today, Justin?
Doing all right. How you guys doing?
Oh, not too bad. So today we saw nil draw against Chelsea. But as I told Paul when we were at our meetup, I felt a lot better after that game. It was a point. Yeah, I would have liked to have scored. Yeah, I would have liked to have had more than 30% possession. But there were way more positives to take out of that game than anything else. What do you guys think?
I would agree. It's weird you felt positive coming out of a draw, but in a way against Chelsea, and with the new manager especially, you don't know if they're going to be amped up a little bit and how that's going to look too. And I think in light of our recent, whatever you want to call it, non-success, you walk out of there with a point. I think you feel decent about it. And more importantly, our offensive struggles are our offensive struggles. But the way our defense held together and our first clean sheet since October, I think, in the league. So I think you feel a little bit positive about that. Hopefully get some momentum going.
Yeah, definitely. If you look at it as an attritional defensive performance, and yeah, every day of the week you'd go to Stamford Bridge and say you're going to come away without conceding, I'd take it every time if that's a point or if it was ultimately 3. So if you're solely focusing on it with your defensive glasses on, then yeah, Bolly, fantastic. Kilman came in again, looks great. Thought Semedo had a good game. Rui did what he had to do. There's a good save in there in the second half of that deflection. Backs to the wall at times for sure, but to have that solidity back, it is so important. It's such at the heart of what Wolves is all about as a unit, really, and that was important. And no silly mistakes. I was nervous when they were going into the box and there were 2 or 3 around him. It's just like, no foul, nothing stupid. Don't dangle a leg out. I was fearing the worst of that, but they came through that okay. And you take the positives from the defensive standpoint for sure.
Who was your man of the match? For me, it was probably Kilman with Bolly right behind him. I thought Kilman played fantastic defensively.
I'm right there. I'll take Bolly with it too. He was, I think, what we come to expect out of him, healthy and all of that. I think he was up for the performance today, so he's my guy.
Yeah, me too. I'm going Bolly, Kilman, Semedo, probably in that order, and that's a reflection of the output, really, that it was a very defensive performance. That's okay. I thought Podence was good after coming in really straight from injury, not introduced from the bench, straight back into the starting 11. I think we got the hour from him that we expected, but I really feel when he's in that role, if he was definitely more of the 10 rather than the 9 as the sole man up front. And I really think to get the best out of him, he needs that partner to play off. That hopefully with Willian, that's it in these next coming weeks. And there's a partnership potentially to form there with Willian as the focal point and Dendoncker playing off him and the 2 other guys alongside maybe. I think that's got some good potential going forwards. I'm caught in a game of very few chances. I love him to bits, but Dendoncker's becoming an issue. And that chance in the first half with the header, that's exactly what that type of role needs to be delivering, but at least making the keeper work. Late run into the box, he's big, 6'2", should be dominating in the air like that. And I'm not sure what switched from last year to this, and he was a 6-goal midfielder, I think, last year, or he was definitely more prolific than he has been so far this season. And it doesn't seem like they're one-offs anymore. It's continually that he's going to get a chance each game and he's not going to score. And if that keeps on happening, then that's where an upgrade's needed, because if he's taking up that role of the box-to-box midfielder who puts in the dirty work, which he does great, then it's a liability that he can't match that up with goals, because that's what he needs if it's a midfield 2 of Neves, or if it's more of a stricter back 5, if there's a 3 and a 2, there's got to be goals come from that midfield in that type of role.
It's going to be very interesting in the next game because Aït-Nouri picked up an injury today. So it's going to be Semedo can be on the left side and Hoover on the right. I thought Saiz for sure is going to be the next starting 11, and I think it's going to be either at left wing back because he's done it, or it's going to be in place of Den Donker. And I think it would be best suited in place of Donk for the reasons you just specified.
Yeah, it's a good point. Those opportunities are there. As you said that, I was wondering, do you think because he was less expected with Raul in, that he could sneak in there, have that opportunity, and maybe less pressure to execute? Now, it's anybody that can get an opportunity in closing, and that's why there are guys like Raul out there who can finish, and other guys who may be a 6 goal versus a 10 or a 12 or a 15. I don't know. As you said, that's kind of got me thinking. It's maybe that's what it is. It's the amount of pressure focused on there.
I think as far as Saiz goes, for me, the Nuno ship has sailed with him in midfield now, that he's more seen as a centre-back, and that's my only reservation about that call. I don't think he's got the mobility to put in the hard yards that Den Donker does, so you can't have your cake and eat it. And we want more goals from Donk, but then we don't want to miss that work getting around the middle of the park, because they were under pressure a lot and they didn't really shine. But I think a lot of the work that he and Neves did today will go overlooked, but they had a significant defensive responsibility today, which ultimately did well. But yeah, it's just that fine margins, those 1 or 2 chances, the top teams probably take them, and that's where we are, and we're below that at the moment, right?
I was curious your guys' thoughts on Neto today, his performance, because he obviously had the closest opportunity right off the bar there, but there were a couple. Maybe it was the weather, maybe it was wet. I don't know what it was, but there were just a couple things where he's normally on point. Either it's a shot on target or a pass. I don't know. He just seemed a little bit off today. I don't know if you guys felt the same way.
I think he's feeling a little pressure too, for the fact that he's probably the biggest goal scoring threat, or should be. And I feel like he's feeling he has to do too much. And again, you're talking about a young kid. Was he 20 or 21?
20, yeah.
20. Yeah. And it's a big responsibility. And he's a future star. I think we can all agree. We've seen enough of him. His speed, his pace, it's just so underrated. He constantly beats guys once he turns on the jets, and he plays so hard. But he probably needs a little bit of a break too. That dude hustles nonstop, and it may be starting to take a toll as well.
Yeah, that's when we've seen flashes of him, certainly this season, where he's excelled, or going back to the Fulham game early doors, he came off the bench and got the winner. So we have to take a step back and again realize his age, and crazy season, compact schedule. He's getting games internationally now as well. That he's getting miles on the clock as far as that goes as well. He's certainly a player that schedule needs monitoring, because we don't want to risk a burnout, because when he's on it, he's really on it.
So we had another curse of the transfer window signing with a whole lot of Wolves, when as soon as we had it all wrapped and published, here comes another signing. But I think we're all excited to see Willan Jose coming in. I saw people that were like, we don't understand. He's not Portuguese. He speaks Portuguese because he's Brazilian. But I was excited when he came in, and I don't know if it was just because going from Podence to him, or if that 6'2.5" he's listed at is an understatement. But that dude looked huge out there.
It did look big. And that's what I thought was some of the positives, that he was battling for the balls and either coming away with it, or certainly making the defender work hard for it, where previous weeks, and it's no knock on the kid, but that was an easy pickup for the opponent when it was Silva in that position. So automatically, I think there's a positive there. He was able to challenge in the air. Seemed like he had good control for a big guy as well, especially dropping deep, which we seem to see given the situation that he came into. But I think if you've got that mobile big forward that can do that, and we start to link up play in these next couple of days, thanks to more time on the training ground and getting the partnerships, I could probably see him really linking up and doing well in that formation.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. I feel like he came in with a lot of energy, and he was able to push in the the minimal opportunities he had when he came in, but really that drop back when we were taking all the heat there towards the end. I think he's the one who had the header right at the very end, right off the corner, that pretty much saved the match. It saved us 2 points there. So yeah, it was good to see that. And I think the more time he gets, I think you're spot on. Heck, I think he got cleared last night, right? So you got everything worked through. It's just going to be minutes with the club together and just learning each other. So some exciting.
So, well, I think we should give some kudos to the club that we'd written off the transfer window, but up pops Willie and Jose the next day after we dismiss it. And then there was subsequent talk today of Edin Dzeko. So they've obviously been looking at these types of players and they've found that out of all of them, he's been the best fit. So there's a lot of smoke and mirrors with what's going on and the solutions are in the squad. And you have to read between the lines somewhat, but I think that's fine. If we're guessing, then the opposition are guessing and we keep our cards close to our chests. So I'm going to totally write off any more signings this transfer window and expect a flurry these next couple of days.
Well, I think the club looked at the front line's performance against Chorley, and Silva and Catrone did not look good. I think at that point it was like, this is not going to work. They have to do something. And I love that it was a loan with an option to buy. That's what I was saying. As soon as Raul got hurt, that's what they needed, because we don't know if Raul's going to come back yet. If he does, great. Then we don't need the 19 million pound option. But if he doesn't, we may already have the guy who can replace him on the roster, and that's great.
Yeah, it's a nice addition to have that option for it too. I don't know. I think we're all crossing our fingers. Obviously, I think we talked about a long time ago that the health is the most important thing, but the positive that there's a chance he'll play this year, which if he does, I think we all agree, great, fantastic. More importantly, take care of yourself and your family, all of the above there. So it's a nice segue if we need to make that segue.
It could be a perfect addition to the squad in that he's not come as a direct starter from a team that he's been used to more of that role from off the bench. So if we look into next season and we've got a fully fit Jimenez, we've got Silva, and now we've got Willian, then that's a nice collection to have, that we've got some seniority to drop back if Raul gets injured again. It's not the be all and end all that we throw lumping everything on Fabio again and take away the positives that he's had 6 months of a lot of game time that he probably wouldn't have got, and full pre-season, everything that goes with it into the next one. Then you could have a nice three-pronged selection up top that could be the envy of some teams for sure.
There's something that the world wants you to know. Best in the world, and he comes from Mexico. I'm number 9. Give him the ball and he'll score every time.
We have advanced in the FA Cup. It was a little bit ugly, actually a lot bit ugly against Chorley, but they came away with the 1-0 victory. Just real quick, what did you guys think of that game? Was it just a matter of they were just going through the motions to get the win, or what?
I'll call it, like you look at some other tournaments or something, survive in advance, maybe is the way you put it.
Yeah,
they did,
and that's fair.
The thing that was curious to me, and I feel like maybe just because it's been a weird year and you read the articles about the strain on Nuno personally being away from his family, but the comments about the pitch before, which I think once you saw the photos, you can line, but just him and he said it's not an excuse, but it was just weird to lead with that. And I don't know if he's trying to make a statement about, hey, there needs to be a level for safety for my guys or something. I just found that was odd that it led into it. And then like they got it done, move on, never talk about this again, and let's go.
I think that's very much the case. And what he can do in that type of game is protect his players from undue criticism. It wasn't pretty, but we did what we had to do. We were damned if we do, damned if we don't with that game. If we'd have won 5-0, I said, oh, well, should have done that anyway. And if we'd have scraped through 1-0, yeah, it was the worst thing that could have ever happened. No, losing and going out the competition was. So we can go back to parallels of a couple of years ago and going to Shrewsbury and being 2-0 down at half time and coming back and bringing them back for a replay that we were lucky to do in that game, and then going on to the semi. I'm taking those positive vibes.
And Wolves, they've shown they can beat Southampton. It's not going to be an easy game, but we could be looking at another nice little run, win that game, and they're in the quarterfinals. So we'll see. We'll have that here in a couple weeks. Well, it's a double game week. We have on Saturday, Wolves are facing off against Crystal Palace. And then on Tuesday, they're back at it against Arsenal. So let's start with Crystal Palace. And joining us once again is Matt Sampson. He's part of the Palace supporters group in D.C. Welcome back, Matt.
Thanks for having me again, guys. A good day and a belated happy 2021 to you both.
Thank you.
So it seems like a real quick reversal of fixtures. We had an FA Cup tie in there as well. So we've seen a lot of you guys recently, but how have you fared since the last time we guys saw you?
It's been a rough patch for certain. We followed that league loss to Wolves with a 4-1 win over Leeds, which was likely Palace's second best effort of the season after the win at Old Trafford. And some of the gruesome numbers since that performance against Leeds, and apologies if you hear me wincing as I go through some of these. It's 2 wins in 13 matches in all competitions. Specific to the Premier League, it's 10 points out of their last 12 matches. And those 2 wins that were mentioned earlier were against Sheffield and West Brom. Not the most positive ledger there. And
we lost 3 to West Brom, so
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of room to
I was going to
talk.
say, as you were introducing, I was saying it seems like we're in some ways right back where we were a few months ago. We're even on points and separated only by goal differential, though I dare say our spirits were much higher back then.
Yeah. We were a little healthier too.
Yes, same. But asking about most recent form, looking at the Tuesday's 3-2 final against West Ham, I think that final score really flatters Palace. You see that score line, you can get fooled into thinking it was a tight, interesting game, and it was really anything but. Palace scored first and then was really flat out dominated for 70 to 80 minutes. Antonio hit the post twice for the Hammers. West Ham probably should have had 5 on the board before Michy Batshuayi scored an injury on the last kick of the game to really make things appear far more respectable for Palace. But I guess to sum up, safe to say that Palace has had better stretches than this one for sure.
We're about to wrap up the transfer window, Matt. It's seen one addition to your forward line with Jean-Philippe Mateta arriving. Do you expect he'll make an impact in the starting 11 on Saturday based on his arrival and the form of the current team? And is there anyone else that we need to look at when we come head-to-head again?
I hope so, just because Palace is a squad right now just in dire need of an offensive spark. Going back to those 13 matches we talked about, Palace has a grand total of 12 goals and 41 shots on target. It's safe to say Palace fans would love to see Mateta in the 11 on Saturday, and I was thrilled to read today that his visa problems were settled and that he was at least an option for selection in a few days. Reports coming in, and of course, like anyone with a new transfer, I've just been drooling over all his YouTube highlights the last couple of days. Reports say that Mateta is someone who's been on Palace's radar for 2 years now. You'd have to think that means they know what they're getting and that he's a fit. And from a supporter standpoint, there's just this mentality right now of he has to be an improvement, right? He's got 10 goals in 17 games in the Bundesliga this season, which shows there's some real promise there. Given Roy's tendency to stick with the old guard sometimes, I'm not counting him seeing in the 11, maybe in a substitution appearance. And to be honest, I'd be happy to even see the lineup that we had out there for the last 15 to 20 minutes versus West Ham. That group certainly brought a bit more spark and goal scoring chances than we'd had for a long stretch in that game or over the past couple of matches. And as far as informed players, the discussion begins, as it so often does, with Wilf Zaha, another goal yesterday, and really the only consistent threat for Palace this year. Eberechi Eze has really flashed at times this season, has battled some bouts of inconsistency as well. The smoothness with which he can go through the gears is really something to watch. His goal versus Sheffield on the counter was just gorgeous and a real highlight for Palace this year. I'd say Zaha and Eze, it's probably a no-brainer for you guys too. It's probably exactly who you were thinking as well.
So what are areas that you're a little worried Wolves can exploit?
You've really got some options here, fellas, let me tell you, between midfield and center backs. Palace's age, I think, is really showing in those spots, both the lack of pace on the players and in the inability for anyone to stay consistently healthy. Gary Cahill, Mamadou Sakho, and James Tompkins have all missed significant time this season, which means our most reliable center back is Czech Kayati, who isn't traditionally a center back by trade, is mixed and matched there over his career. And there's a real lack of cohesion in that spot with a new pairing there just about every other game. There was a moment in the West Ham match where West Ham played a long ball, no hammer really in the area, and Kade and Cahill wind up both going for it, knocking heads, and both stayed down for a stretch. They wound up both continuing, thankfully, because I have absolutely no idea who would have filled in for them at that point in time. But it just sort of kind of summed that Keystone Copsey sort of thing, just filled in or summed up the issues that we've had at center back. The midfield has been a little healthier, but still problematic. They really just seem overwhelmed at times. Build-ups take a far too long. They've really been overrun in the midfield the last few games. And when I say last few games, I mean both Tuesday and against West Ham and just generally last few games against Wolves overall, I think. And there hasn't been much in terms of personnel changes there that would, lead you to believe that that same sort of thing wouldn't happen again on Saturday. Looking at the way West Ham owned the middle of the field during the game, if I'm Wolves, I'm attacking Palace that exact same way.
Lucky for you, we have struggles attacking the middle.
Okay, all right. Fingers crossed.
I was going to say that you're just outlining what sounds like a nailed-on 0-0 draw. So,
yeah, right.
Because given the run of poor results that the Wolves have had, there's been a handful in our fan base that have looked over their shoulder somewhat at the relegation battle rather than up toward the top half of the table. Seems we've switched places last couple of weeks. We're very closely aligned in the standings. Is that the same for fans of the Eagles, looking behind rather than ahead?
Yeah, definitely so. It's nervy times indeed for the Palace fan base. The run-in for the season of the last dozen games looks just absolutely brutal. So this upcoming 6-game stretch starting Saturday versus Wolves could very well be season and survival defining for Palace. It's Wolves, Newcastle, Leeds, Burnley, Brighton, Fulham. You've got to get some points there, handfuls of points there, I think. I'm just speaking over, so in the larger, some other concerns, obviously relegation. This is what's talked about wildly with Palace fans and on the podcast. This is an aging squad that's got a dozen players out of contract in the summertime. Everyone knows that rebuild's coming. They've taken some small steps towards that already. The Eze and the Mateta deals most notably. They've got a young right back in Nathan Ferguson, who came in from West Brom, who's unfortunately been out all year with a knee injury. But they still need to be in the Premier League with the financial resources that come from that as they do this roster revamp. And if they don't come out of this 6-game stretch with 10-ish or so points, that worry level is going to be at record highs.
We just got through playing them in the FA Cup. Great goal by Adama. Are we still feeling confident?
We need to roll off of this and take that confidence into it. I think that's the best thing that we can do. And maybe there's a +1 boost because we recently beat them and we've not had a lot of those victories as well. And I guess if there's more motivation, we're level on the table with them right now. I think I'll square on matches as well. To put a little space between us and them and climb the table a little bit would be nice. So I have some confidence. I'd say it's a positive there. A couple pluses to take into the match.
So what Matt said, they've got a collection of games coming up that they need to get some points from. And that's certainly the case for us as well when it comes to a fixture against Palace away from home, that hopefully we're looking at it now that we've gone back to basics, we've pressed reset. The 5 at the back is here for predominantly the rest of the season, pretty much.
Better be.
That's the case, yeah. So, go back to basics, use that as the foundation, but go there on Saturday with increasing confidence, knowing that you've got the solidity and you've got more of an attacking threat again than I think we had previously. And a little to Matt's point, what he mentioned about weak points, something that I made a note of, that it's one area that we can win this game is the centre of midfield. That on those 2 home games, in both in the league and the cup, we did really well. Neves had one of his best games in the league with Dendoncker as well. So I think there's some opportunity there, and I'll be interested to see what he goes with in terms of formation, because I think that the 5's here now. Is he going to play a 3 in the midfield and have a more forward advanced midfielder, whether it's Vitinha, maybe Podence? Is it a chance for Neto to have a break and come from the bench and go with a more forward 2? If it's Willian and Adama, maybe. I'm not sure. I think they got some options, but I think this game's going to be won in the centre of the park.
What would be your anger level if they come out in a back 4? On a scale of 1 to 10, mine would probably be 8.
I'll roll with an 8. Yeah,
I think so.
Surprised.
I'd certainly be questioning it, because we do need that defensive solidity, and Palace are right there with us in the table, but they've got an attacking threat. Like we always talk about Zaha. Eze could have one of his games that he can turn it on when needs be. So I don't know, but that 4 showed positives at home, but I think away from home, again, we may have some doubts as the left wing back spot. If that's problematic, that's going to cause a difference. It may not even be viable to think of having a back 4 if you haven't got a dedicated left back there. So stick with the 5. Don't let any goals in, and see what you can get from there.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Saiss at left wing back. Semedo did good today, but I felt like he wasn't as strong in the second half as he was in the first half. I felt like in the first half, he was doing a fantastic job. I just wish he'd be a little more aggressive going into the box. But his natural is definitely the right side. So I think Saiss is going to come in there in left wing back. I think this is a game to give Neto at least the first little bit off. Probably put Podence. I want to see the 3-4-3 again. Adama, Podence on the outside, and then Willen in the middle. And let's see where it goes.
I'm all for that. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I like the way Podence played today. I think he comes in with a lot of energy and a spark with it too. So again,
creativity is his
yeah, that's a great way to put it. Especially, I think, Paul, you said coming off of being out for a few matches, his injury, like he really came with it today. He didn't seem timid, and I'm sure just eager to get back out and play too. Just bouncing around for to your point, the 30% that we did have possession today. Yeah. He was bouncing around with it. So again, if those guys can get more time together, I think that's what it takes in a lot of ways, especially with Willen in there. So hopefully that'll help.
What I like about Podence is the aggression that he brings, because we haven't got that nasty piece of work necessarily, and he is, and it's great because given his size and his close control, he gets stuck in, but he generates fouls as well. That's a part of his game that all of a sudden he's coming up against a fullback that he might have got a booking out of, and suddenly that's where they can be attacked. And yeah, he'll get stuck in and he'll pick up a booking, and he might be a red card in the future. But those are the types of players that you definitely want on your team and not the opposition.
And I definitely want to see Adama with Willen. I feel like now we'll get to see a little bit more of the Adama where he's going to go to the byline, cross it in, and there's actually going to be somebody above 6 foot that can be there waiting for it.
I think we've been missing that really bad.
Yeah, we really, and Adama has too.
But I mean him. Yeah, that's his bread and butter's there, because he can beat anybody about down that line and put it on the mark. And Raul's just able to finish. We just need somebody who can get in there and finish when Adama's able to get in there and do that.
But often the negativity pointed towards Adama, that he's head down and that's all he's concerned with is about me. But actually, he is one of the players that's most reliant on partnership. Mm-hmm. And that partnership is either with Raul or that number 9, that it's a link-up play that puts him through, like the goal against Liverpool last year, Southampton away. Then he's got the play to look up for and find in the box in those situations, rather than just head down, hit the byline, that there's no one there. He relies so much on partnerships, and similarly with the guy behind him, that Doherty tandem worked a treat last year, and that's been fledgling so far with Semedo. We've seen some green shoots, but that's still got some potential to grow for sure.
Speaking of Doherty, how much do you think he regrets leaving Wolves?
I don't know. I think
because he is just buried on the bench over there.
Yeah, with everything at life, he probably saw that opportunity to go and wanted it at 30 after 10 years at club and a chance at his big payday. But then at the same time, he'd want to be going there and think, at least I'm going to be challenging for a place. And Serge Aurier isn't the most world-class right back, but neither's Doherty, and Doherty excelled as a wing back. So, yeah, it's a strange move, I think, looking back of it now on his part.
And then let's look to Arsenal. Arsenal's a very odd team. At times they'll look like poo, and then they'll just turn it on and score a boatload of goals. What do you think? What Arsenal team are we going to see?
They've been a little, I would say, hot but warmer lately, maybe is the best way to put it. I don't know. I still have ill feeling. I probably have ill feelings towards them anyway because of what they are. But after last year, again, when we were making a good run there towards the end of the season, but I'm sure we're gonna catch a strong team. I think again they may be up on the climb a little bit. They're top 10 right now. I think we're sitting around 9th. So I think anytime you play them is a challenge anyway. They've got enough threats that it's going to put a challenge on our club anyway. And how much can we get out of everything we've been talking about in offensive attack? And is it the one or two opportunities, and do we close one of those, or do we generate more? So either way you look at it, I think it's going to be a challenge of a match.
Just goes to show what a couple of decent results stitched together can launch you and propel you pretty rapidly up the league. And we've certainly swapped places with them. They've carried on climbing, we've been dropping. But it's not the feared Arsenal of previous years, but you still class them in the likes of the Chelsea's, Arsenal, Everton, of those types of teams that's going to turn up to the Molineux, and it's going to be a test. And it's good in a way that they are somewhat more free-flowing in better form than maybe rocking up there and thinking we've got to be defensive Arsenal because we're underperforming and we need to grind out a result. I don't think that's going to be the case. So I think it could be quite an entertaining game of two teams both going at each other in a relatively free-flowing way, even if it is both playing 5 at the back.
Do you think they play a little rougher against David Luiz? Do you think there's an extra elbow here and there? For the most part, Wolves play pretty classy and don't usually look for retaliation. What do you think?
I think the fact we won that match was enough. I don't know. It wasn't a tackle that was blatant. It was something like that. But I don't know. I think they left it there. To my opinion, they settled it last match by winning. I don't know.
I think that's fair as far as the team would go, that they're putting the performance for Raul after the event, and that was that was them showing that revenge element. What would be interesting, and we don't experience it, would have been the crowd reaction. So whether he'd get booed, which he probably would.
Every time he touched the ball.
Yeah, and that would then raise the stakes of the Wolves players because they've got that momentum and there's that extra bit of energy to try and chase him down, or maybe put in that sliding tackle if he's close to the corner flag and just show him that they're there and in the game. But I think, without no crowd, having won the reverse fixture, I think he'll be played pretty normal.
Do you think over the next 2 games, Crystal Palace or Arsenal, we're going to see any of Silva, any of Vitana, any of those young guys? Or is this time to rely on those veterans and see what they can do?
I think we're going to need to. We've got a close schedule in a couple of these between the Cup and the League. So just for minutes-wise, I think we're going to get in there. Do I think it's Silva coming in the 65th, 70th, something like that? Possibly. It's going to be those type of minutes, I should say. I don't see a start unless something else drastically changes. I don't know. It depends on how obviously the training goes and that, if it's a front 2, front 3 get comfortable. But I think that's the way I would picture it more. Is probably how it's going to happen on those couple matches.
Yeah, I agree. I think we've got an opportunity that Willian might be finding his feet. So if he starts, he gets a good 60, 65, 70 minutes, and then 20 minutes of Fabio coming on, that at least he's got that experience more of, if needed. But I think there's some, I'm totally in agreement with Justin that it's time to see the results of the squad, and it could be a game on Saturday where Tana starts and it's a 3 in the middle. I think that there's some scope for that to be playing slightly more advanced if it is a 3.
And following up there, does Catrone play another minute with Wolves this season?
According to Nuno, sure. That quote he had this week, which, but I say no, unless they drastically have an injury situation. Yeah, he's going to be bundled up on the side.
We're going to say that, he's definitely going to be staying till the end of the season, and then tomorrow he gets loaned to Udinese or something. So, because, Nuno said he's part of the squad, but we've got to read between the lines again. A lot of smoke and mirrors. There's probably a deal being worked on. I think I've got some reservations. If we could keep him around, having him on the bench is better than what was there previously, I think. But it's just the case that he genuinely didn't do himself any favours on the pitch in the fleeting moments that we saw him, and none more so than that chance against West Brom, where that could have propelled him into the stratosphere, is doing something in that game, and then having all of the opportunity against Chorley. And in a 2, and then that was insipid at times. I think again he's run his course, but with that expanded bench, still some issues towards the end of the season around availability. If we could keep him, I think it's better than not.
Yeah, and they could always put him out on loan and recall him again if they needed to. He's one that I feel gets really pouty if he's not playing, though, so it probably is best. Gibbs White, I don't care. He can just go wherever at this point, man, that dude. I hope he's recovering okay from COVID, but with the rest of it, yeah. So let's hear predictions. Crystal Palace first. Let's start with Justin.
I'll say we get 3 points, 2-1.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paul's writing it down.
I am. I'm crazy optimistic. I think this point and a clean sheet against Chelsea can be built on. I'm probably going to regret this, but I'm going a 2-0 away win to the mighty Wolves.
Okay. I am going to go 1-0 with Willen scoring. Probably in about 65th minute on a cross from Adama.
That's very specific.
Yeah, write that down. Write that down in the notes.
So we're going to get on to our predictions so far this season, and they've been way off. So I'm not even bothering with any of that. So,
what about Arsenal, Justin?
Oh man, I do think it's going to be a good match. I think again, I can see it as another 70-30 possession, but I think we will get a couple opportunities in there, especially playing at home. I think we'll take a point out of that. I think we'll go 1-1.
I'm the same. I think if we get a win on Saturday, it'll have made it a great week back to the Chorley game that we've come through that game and then got 4 points in the league. And then I'd be inclined, if it is a win on Saturday, to build on it and not lose and put a run together and go undefeated, not lose against Arsenal. And I think it'll be entertaining and we'll tie 2-2.
Judging by the way it's gone so far this year, and every time we have multiple games before the podcast, first game, I do great. And then the one right before we tape the podcast is always a disaster. So I'm going to say 2-0 Arsenal. Ugh. I hope I'm wrong. And you said you're going to give an update?
So with the Chelsea game, pretty much being the midpoint of the season for the fixtures in the league, we have predicted across 19 games so far. Obviously, we've missed some games if we had double game weeks or we're off over Thanksgiving. So my scoring is that we each get a point if we get the correct outcome, so loss, win, or a draw, and there's 2 bonus points if we actually get the correct score. So this is why it's not very positive, and you can really predict what the hell you want to, because from 19 games, Josh is in third with 5 points, but closely on the heels of Paul with 6, and our guests with 6 as well, who are tied. So none of us doing any good.
That's rough.
That is tremendous. Yeah.
So if you are of a betting persuasion, take what we see and do completely opposite. Because
Don't do it.
Yeah,
Maybe this is the turning point. You said Chelsea's the halfway. Maybe we turn a corner here.
Well, I hope I didn't with my prediction. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
What do we have in the no stupid question inbox this week, Paul?
So it's that part of the show, folks, where you get in touch across our socials, email, or via our website to ask us absolutely anything you want when it comes to the Wolves, be it historical or about the match day experience, or absolutely anything that you want to know, ask away, and we will do our best to answer. Leaf Coleman from Ithaca, New York did just that this past week by emailing us at hello@wholelotofwolves.com and asking, how are local fans towards US fans, generally speaking? I've been to a couple of Man City games and there are lots of international fans. So this is a really good question to get our teeth into and to highlight to the new fan base of what it's like at the Molineux, what the makeup of the crowd is, because as a general rule, the population of the West Midlands is a very friendly bunch. So when you go to the Wolves, it is a team and an area that's very concentrated, that everyone supports the local team. We're not a team like a Manchester United or Liverpool that's enjoyed success in the past. So they may draw crowds in from further afield who travel in for the games. So that really means that crowd at the Molineux, we got a capacity of, I think it's 32,000. It's very local. We don't have the plastics. We don't have the out of towners. We haven't got that glory hunter fan base because we've never experienced that glory in recent memories. And I think what stands us in good stead around that friendliness and around the atmosphere is that we've got our season tickets sell out every year, and I think we've got roughly about 10,000 in the waiting list. And this is where it gets interesting with Lee's question, because if we start looking to get to that next status of club, if it's a ground redevelopment, the Molineux, of increasing the capacity, then we've got to have that extra 10, 15K in mind, that we turn into more of a 50,000, 55,000 capacity stadium like Anfield used to be, rather than think, well, we've got to really go for it and put 60, 70,000 there like a Spurs stadium, or to a lesser extent Man City, because I think this is where, to his point, is being to see Man City and there's a lot of international fans, and often that's because you're talking about in England some very working class areas like Wolverhampton is, and Manchester where Man City is. So you start talking about the socio-economics of the area, because when Man City have enjoyed the success they've had, you're probably thinking around the mark of $55, $60 a match ticket. So if you've got a home game, if you've got 2 home games back to back, and then you've got a Champions League group game thrown in there on the Wednesday, that's a lot of money that you start to be parting with for that fan who's local and supports both home and away. When you start to add those additional fixtures, that's where you start, they generally can't afford it, so they need to be really where they want to spend their money and watch the teams in those particular games. So I think that's where the likes of Man City get that tourist element from. Same with Liverpool, an area that, again, very working class. They have got that local fan base, but they do get those out-of-towners. They get those people internationally traveling, because they do get those tickets that become available because they've got more games and they've got more opportunities. I'd say to Leaf, if you're thinking about going, it'd be great when the travel restrictions open up globally and everyone gets back to normal. I'd definitely say in your part of the world, try and get with New York Wolves, become a member with them, because they have access to a pool of tickets through the supporters club affiliations that all of our groups have. When you go to the Molineux, there's a special dedicated worldwide lounge for international fans, dedicated bar area in the stadium where you go in and you'd be talking to folks who've traveled both domestically and internationally as well. So you're going to get a really good vibe of different people from different parts of the country, different parts of the world even. And if it, for you, Leaf, or anyone else listening, if there's not a local Wolves supporters club internationally that you can affiliate through a worldwide Wolves group, then you can definitely go through the membership section on the website and become an international member directly as an individual. That brings about all of those benefits that I've just said and more. So long story short, very welcoming, very hospitable fan base, salt of the earth people, and the club do a lot to try and bring fans traveling from overseas into the fold and form part of the pack for sure.
So one question I have, Paul, as a lifelong Wolves fan, are you concerned if they expand the stadium too much and raise the ticket prices? That's going to make it more difficult for the diehard fans to still be able to be there supporting the club?
Basic economics that you would think that by expanding the stadium, you'd be able to keep the ticket prices in check because you've got more people spending that same amount of money, but you got more people going, so that's going to bring bigger profits. And yeah, that's never going to happen because it's all down to dollars and cents, and more people, more opportunity to raise those ticket prices. And again, it's a slippery slope. Wolves have such a passionate local fan base that if you start to stretch it beyond that 10k that are on that waiting list, then you do start to run the risk of diluting what makes that crowd so special. So I think there's a fine margin between how you take that expansion, because it needs to happen, but you don't take it too far to get the negative elements of it at the same time.
Do we have any social shout outs this week, Paul?
Just the one from our good friend Wolfman Jeff. He's not only in Alabama, but he's on the porch in Alabama. So go ahead and check out Twitter, because he sent in a picture of him doing exactly that. So it looks very pleasant there with Wolfman Jeff, and we're always grateful for his interactions throughout our socials and on this show. So we look forward to welcoming you back on very soon as a guest, Jeff.
So as we wrap up, Justin, remind the listeners how they can get a hold of you in Tennessee Wolves.
Yeah, and again, thanks guys as always for having me on. They can reach out 10wolves, TEN-wolves at gmail.com. And if you're interested in being a member in Tennessee and in Nashville area, feel free to reach out, or if you're passing through from one of the other supporter groups, we've had some reach outs to that. And hopefully when we get together more frequently, can do some meetups here and in other locations. Feel free to reach out. It'd be great to meet other supporters.
Listeners, thanks for your continued support. Please subscribe, share the podcast, give us a 5-star review on your podcast listening platform of choice. This helps such a lot to grow our exposure. We'll be back again next week following the Arsenal game to cover that bumper game week again, and anticipate another one when Leicester come into town. We've also got the excitement of that FA Cup building as well. So in the meantime, stay safe out there, look after yourself and your pack. In Nuno we trust, and up the Wolves.